Thank you. Wow. What a place. What a place. You know, Jerry took my speech, but I said, we don't really need that stuff anyway. This is an amazing school. It's an amazing university. And I'll tell you something, all over the world they're talking about it. Liberty University, what they've done, and in such a short time. So you can be very, very proud of yourself and your leaders. Amazing job. You know, your founder, Jerry Falwell, was a great man. And I was saying before that I met him on a number of occasions. So impressive, so smart, so tough when you had to be tough, but a man with a big, beautiful heart, tremendous heart. And I have to tell you that Chancellor Jerry Falwell Jr. is an incredible guy. Now, I am in the real estate business. A lot of you don't know this, but for about 20 years, Jerry Falwell Jr. was in Central Virginia as a real estate developer. A friend of mine from the area said, man, was he tough and smart and good. You believe this? And now look what he's doing. So it all sort of works. But he was a tough, smart guy, and I want to just tell you, I'm glad he sort of left the real estate business because Trump would be a distant number two, I can tell you that. It's true. You know, when I got a call from Liberty, I said, you know, I was confirmed at First Presbyterian Church, Jamaica, Queens. You don't know where Queens is, it's in New York. First Presbyterian, and I said, do you have that certificate and do you have that picture? Are they going to put it up? Because I actually sent it. But, I was a brat. I was a terrible brat, actually. But, you know, I used to love going to Sunday school. People don't know this about Trump. They think, oh, Trump, you know, Trump. But the truth is, I went to Sunday school. And I loved going to Sunday school. And I did for years. And First Presbyterian Church, which is one of the oldest in the country, was just a great place. And I learned a lot. And I learned about God. And that was probably the greatest thing I've ever learned. Forget all the business stuff. When I was asked to speak, I said, do you want me to speak? You know, these are, in many cases, young people that are going and they want to conquer the world and do well. Or do you want me to talk politics? And they said, well, maybe you talk about success, but you could mention a little bit about politics. Well, let's start by saying that our country is in serious trouble. It's in serious trouble. We have 17 trillion in debt. We have a real unemployment of 21%. Forget the 8.2% nonsense. The real number is 21%. You know, the numbers are such that you can't read them anymore. When you're looking for a job and then you give up, they take you off the unemployed and your number doesn't show up. So we're anywhere from 16 to 21%. The world is laughing at us. We're like a bunch of patsies. China is taking advantage of us like nobody has ever done before. China, I sold an apartment recently for $53 million in a building in New York. And a great building. All my buildings are great. To a Chinese gentleman who, in all fairness, I'm not knocking Chinese leadership. If you can get away with it, get away with it. But he said, how do we get away with this? He actually is asking me, how do we get away with it? Our leaders don't get it. Let me give you a little example. The Olympics. We wanted to get the Olympics in Chicago. Now, the President of the United States makes a trip to Europe on Air Force One. Trip must have cost probably $10 million if you knew what these planes cost with all the security. He goes there to make the case that the Olympics should come to the United States. This is called amateur hour. He gets an audience and he leaves. So I say to myself, oh, we've got the Olympics, it's done. Because no president of the United States would have ever gone to Europe and made such a big deal unless he got or had a wink and a nod, meaning you come here, you're getting it. Not only didn't we get it, we came in 4th place. Now think of this. This is the way our country is run. We are losing our jobs and our manufacturing to other places. You know, we talk about Apple. Everyone's talking about Apple. And Apple's wonderful. But they don't make their product here. They make it mostly in China. So what are we gaining? You know, we're not gaining. They make the product. Why can't we make computers? Why can't we make cell phones? Why can't we make the iPhone in this country? We should be doing it here. We just seem to have lost our edge. And now we're in a position that unless things take place and take place fast, we are going to be, for many, many years to come, in serious trouble to the point that I don't know that you can really come back. OPEC. Take a look at OPEC. You go to their airports. You see where they live. You see the way they live. Unbelievable. Then you come in to LaGuardia, to Kennedy, to LAX, and it's horrible. It's like a third world country. We're spending money that we don't have. We're borrowing money from China to fight in Libya, so they go out and kill our ambassador and other Americans. And then guess where China gets a lot of its oil? From Libya. We don't get the oil from Libya, China does. And I see that. And I made the statement, and people said, oh, it's so controversial. It's so controversial. We get called by the Libyans. They were being routed, if you remember. They were being routed by Gaddafi. It was over. So the rebels, you know, like Gone with the Wind, the nice romantic term, rebels. Most of them came from Iran, and they were fighting us in Iraq. But the rebels convinced us to spend billions of dollars on helping them. Now, when they come, just like the Olympic story, what president would do that unless you know you're going to win? Same story here. They come, they're about over, it's 2 days from the end, and they say, we need help. Now, if Jerry were in this position, if I were in this position, or if somebody that had some brain power, were in the position, and some people disagree with this, and I don't know, maybe you people will disagree. I would have said very simply, we will help you, but we want 50% of your oil. And they would have said, absolutely. And the only reason I wouldn't have asked for 75% is because I want to be a nice person, okay? Like you. And they would have said, absolutely. Now if you said it, horrible. Same thing in Iraq. We go into Iraq. You know what? Iran, in order to get to Syria, is flying their planes directly over Iraq because it's a much shorter trip. So Iraq has the second largest oil reserves in the world. We go into Iraq. We spend $1.5 trillion. They hate us, and we get nothing. You know, in the old days, when you had a war, it was to the victor belong the spoils. Today, we get nothing. We go into a war, we decimate a country, and then we come out, and what do? It's horrible. The way this country is being run is horrible. We have such unbelievable potential, such incredible. Now, we could have said at a certain point during the Iraqi war, well, listen, we're going to stay, we're going to help you out a little further, but we want a lot of your oil. We want to pay, at least give us back $1.5 trillion, which sounds like a lot of money. It's peanuts. They have $9 trillion worth of oil. Give us some money back. So it's now the opposite. I heard the other day where an Iraqi, probably potential killer, said, we want the United States to pay for all the destruction they've done to our country. And one of these idiot politicians will probably say, you know what, that's the only fair thing to do. So what we're doing with our country is oblivion. I've said, and Michelle's heard me say it, and I hope she does great in her, it's going to be a tough one, right? She's 2 points up, tough area, but you're going to win. You better win. But I've said that in terms of this country, we don't need OPEC. We have so much oil. You probably, with your luck, Jerry, you probably have it right under here. I don't know if you want to touch it, but you have it right under here. But we have so much oil and so much energy that, in all fairness, 4 years ago, we didn't know existed. Between the natural gas and actual oil, and it's pure, beautiful oil. We don't need OPEC. We should have approved the pipeline from Canada, but we don't need Canada. We don't need anybody. Now, I left New York, and New York is being flooded with presidents and dictators and everybody. You got some dictators, you got some presidents, some are sort of a combination of both. They call themselves president, but they're actually a dictator. But we got hundreds of them. They're in New York. We have a president that's in New York. You know how many meetings he's going to have? Not one. He's not meeting with one foreign leader. Now, they talk about our country, and they talk about how Barack Obama has done so well in foreign relations and his foreign policy. He's so brilliant. Everything's terrible. You know, he gets the greatest press of anybody that I think I've ever seen. You talk about Teflon. I've never seen anything like it. I heard somebody saying the other day that he's an expert on foreign policy. He went over to Cairo, Egypt, and made a speech. Mubarak was overthrown, and now they hate us. And we give them billions of dollars. And we continue to give them billions, and they want more money. But they still hate us. It's inconceivable what's going on. So, here's the story. If this country doesn't shape up and shape up quickly, it's going to be very, very hard to recover, number one. Number two, we have an election coming up that outside of the biggies, you know, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, we had a couple of biggies, right? And maybe more important than them. This is, I think, going to be the most important election that we've ever had. There's never been a time in our country's history where a presidential election was more important, because our country is going in the wrong direction. Our dollar is being devalued. The world is laughing at us. They think we're stupid. And I see the way Liberty University has been run. I've seen where you came from and how it was a struggle and how brilliant it is right now. Our country has this same potential if we ever wanted to do something about it. As an example, the trillions of dollars that we give on energy, if we took it for ourselves and actually took it, whatever we don't need, we export it, we can take care of our deficits. We can take care of our $16 trillion, which will turn out to be peanuts by comparison to the kind of numbers you're talking about. So the potential is enormous. Hopefully the right things happen in a month and a half, and we get back on track, because the next subject that we're going to discuss just briefly is success. Do you guys, I see all these handsome young men in the front, and I see all these beautiful young women. Do you guys want to be successful, or don't you care? Okay, you better believe it. So let's talk about it, okay? All right? Boy, does he have it. Stand up. Stand up. I love this guy. Stand up. Look at these guys. You have great people. I love them. Because I was no different when I was 20 years old, believe me. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to get out of Brooklyn. I said, Pop, I love you, but I want to get out of Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn, but I want to get out. And I love those buildings. You know, I look from Queens and Brooklyn, and I'd see those big buildings, those big skyscrapers in Manhattan. I said, Pop, that's what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do. And lots of things can happen. I mean, I'll give you one story. About 8 years ago, I was approached by NBC and Mark Burnett to do a show that they had entitled The Apprentice. Now, I had an agent, a big, big, big agent, and he was a great agent. But I shook Mark Burnett's hand, and NBC was dying to do it, and they said, we'd only do it if you do it, Trump. You're the only one we want, nobody else. So I was honored, and I said, you know, okay, I'm going to do it. I knew nothing about television, nothing. So my agent calls me. I heard you accepted doing The Apprentice. I won't let you do it. I said, you're fired. He's worse than me. I did say that, but I waited a little while. Okay, you're tough. So Jim said, Donald, in the history of television, there's never been a primetime show about business or what you're trying to do that succeeded. I said, I wish you told me that. Then he said, and only 3% of the shows that go on television make it. So in other words, you're probably going to have a failure anyway, but you'll definitely have a failure. I'm your agent. I do not want you to do this show. So I said, you know, Jim, I have a problem. I shook the hand of NBC, and I shook the hand of Mark Burnett, who also is known for having done The Survivor, which is another great one. I think Apprentice is better, but these are minor details. I said, I shook their hand. He said, doesn't matter. You can't do it. I said, I have to do it. Anyway, time goes by. We do the show. It goes on. It starts at number 10. It goes to 8. It goes to 5 and 4. It then goes to number 2. And the following week, it's the number 1 show on television. And I knew it was good because I didn't know what the word rating meant. I didn't know, is that good or bad? But I knew it was good because the chairman of NBC called me. It was my birthday. And it was 7 in the morning. And he called. He said, Donald, I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Now, to me, as an instinctive businessman, that means we're doing okay, right? My wife said, who was that? I said, that was the chairman of NBC. He wanted to wish me a happy. She said, darling, it's like 6:30 in the morning. So we went out, and I get a call from the agent. And he calls me also. But his call was like at 8. He said, Donald, congratulations. I'd like to see you. I said, Jim, what do you want to see me about? He said, well, your show just hit number 1. And if you don't mind, I think I'm entitled to a very substantial commission. Oh, he's worse than a real estate broker, Jerry. So I said, how much do you think you're entitled to? Well, how about $2 or $3 million? I said, Jim, you're fired. And that was it. That was it. But remember this. Okay, the story is long, but the point is, number 1, I shook hands. I want to honor my handshake. I would have, had I not shaken hand, I would have really listened to Jim. So that's important. Number 2 is sometimes in life to be successful, oftentimes, most of the time, you have to follow your instincts. You have to follow your gut. You have to. Your parents may say wrong, your whoever may say wrong, but you have to do it. Now, speaking of that, you've got to love what you do. And I've seen so many instances where people with great talent went into things that they didn't love, and they failed. I've seen other instances where people with far less talent. I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I used to say until coming here, it's the greatest school in the world, the greatest business school in the world. I may have to revise my speeches to put it at number 2. Soon I probably will. The way you're going, I think I'm going to have to do that pretty soon. But I would always say to people, and I'd see people, and I'd say, you got to love what you do. Because, you know, if you love what you do, you work harder. But it's not work. I just bought Doral. I was telling Jerry, I just bought Doral, 800 acres in the middle of Miami, gorgeous. I'm so excited, I want to fix it up. It's sort of not so nice now. It's got the big tournament, it's got everything, but it was run by Wall Street people. Wall Street people aren't good for fixing things, they're good for moving paper. That's not good, that's not what we want in the country. I want to do sort of a version of what you did here, but I have many, many jobs like that. I love taking things and fixing, taking things and building. I love building. I almost like fixing better because if you're smart, If you're really smart, you can save a lot of money when the building is there, the foundations are built, the steel is up, the walls are up, and then you have people say renovation costs you more money. Those are people that aren't smart people. I know that for a fact you renovated a couple buildings here and did very well that you could never ever do if you had to build new. If you build new, I love that too. I do it both ways. But there's something great about the renovation project. So you've got to love what you do. You've got to work hard. Never, ever quit. Never, ever give up, because that's the other thing. I've seen people that are super genius, but they don't have that gut feeling. They don't have that stick-to-itiveness, that never quit. And I've seen people that almost made it and failed because they couldn't go that extra mile. They couldn't do it. So you get something, you never, ever quit, never, ever give up. There's another one. I was coming down, and I just wrote it, and I've very rarely spoken about it. And frankly, I don't like to talk in the negative, but sometimes people are better off knowing the fact. Should I tell you what it is or not? Yes. I had a feeling you were going to say. When people ask me about success, I've just started thinking about it over the last couple of years because I've seen a lot of it. You have to have an ability to handle pressure because no matter how successful you are, I have many, many friends and enemies, a lot of enemies too, I don't care, but they're smart. I have a lot of enemies, and I've watched people and I've seen it. And people that can handle pressure can be entrepreneurs, can be successful. Now, I have some friends that are really, really smart, but they can't handle pressure. In which case, they should work for somebody, do great, and have a good life. There's nothing wrong with it. Because I almost think that's an instinctive thing, the ability to handle pressure. Now, one of the things I tell people about pressure is, you know what? They said, how do you handle pressure? Who's had more pressure than me? Ay, ay, ay. Have I had pressure over the years? And, I get criticized in my hair, but it's not so bad, and it's real, it's mine. It is my real hair. I get killed. I had an article recently that was so good. It was such a great article. And then it had one line, but he wears the worst hairpiece I've ever seen. I couldn't show the article to anybody, and it's not even true. But you have to have the ability to handle pressure. And if you can't handle pressure, you have to know that about yourself. You have to know that about yourself. So, handle pressure. If you can't, that's okay. But one of the things I tell people about handling pressure is, remember, because they asked me the question, how do you handle the stress? And somebody actually said, Donald, you're so handsome. Do you believe this? I love this person. You're so handsome. How have you stayed so handsome under all this pressure? And I actually thought of it to myself. You have to remember, it doesn't matter. God matters. Your family matters. It doesn't matter. And if you say it, I have some people, they say, I've got to be successful. I've got to be. They'll never be successful. It's too crazy. They can't think straight. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you that was going crazy, standing up about your success, right? So you've got to handle it. Look, now he's a little bit more low-key. That's very good. I like that. We've calmed him down. So you've got to be able to sort of say to yourself, nothing matters that much other than the real big deals with family, with your faith, etc. Okay. Always have passion. You've got to have passion for your family, for your life, for your church, for whatever it is. You've got to have that passion. You've got to just love it, okay? Now, there are a couple of things that I give in speeches, and he's right. I get millions of dollars to speak. He gave me nothing. This guy's tough. I actually said, well, through a representative, Mr. Trump gets millions of dollars to speak. And they looked at me like, excuse me, millions, forget it, you get nothing. I said, okay, but I'm a Presbyterian, so I'm going to be there. Of course, they won't even pay for my plane fare. You know that? Not even my plane. But honestly, I have to tell you, I love you too. Well, that's a male that said that. That was a male that said, but I love him too, okay? But you know, I really wanted to be here because I've heard so much about Liberty University, especially being Presbyterian, being a Christian, and a very proud Christian. And a real Christian. People are going to say, gee, I wonder what he meant by that. But I've heard so much about Liberty University and the job that's been done that this was really, really my honor. I always finish off by saying two things, but I'm not going to say them to you because you people don't have this problem. One is in business, get even. If somebody hurts you, and I use a much different word in other speeches than I do, but I won't use it. Because Becky said, please don't use bad language, said I missed it. So I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to say, should I use it? No, I won't use it. I promised. You know, I did it in front of a rough group of Teamsters in Las Vegas. They were great. And I did it, and I used some really foul language. I got killed by that language because that was broadcast all over the place. But I wouldn't do it. But I always say, don't let people take advantage. This goes for a country too, by the way. Don't let people take advantage. Get even. And you know, if nothing else, other people will see that and they're going to say, you know, I'm going to let Jim Smith or Sarah Malone, I'm going to let them alone because they're tough customers. So I always say it, but I won't say it to you because this is a different audience. You don't want to get even, do you? Yeah, I think you do. Okay. The other thing I tell people, because in New York it's like a total catastrophe, it's an epidemic, I always say, always have a prenuptial agreement, but I won't say it here because you people don't get divorced, right? Nobody gets divorced. Okay, so I will not say, have a prenuptial agreement to anybody in this room. I just want to end. Who else would say that but Trump, right? See? I said, I should say it, but I won't say it. How do I get my point across without saying it? I just did it, right? But to be a winner, and you're all winners, you've got to think like a winner. And you are just thinking like a lot of beautiful winners. And I love you all. Let's take a couple of questions because they were asking, can we do some questions? Let's do it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jared.
The students actually texted these questions to Johnny. All right. One student wants to know, what was your very first business venture?
Well, my father was a developer, a real estate man in Brooklyn and Queens. And so my first real ventures were when I was at the Wharton School of Finance. I did some little deals around Philadelphia where I'd buy little houses. Philadelphia. And I'd fix them up and sell them, and I had fun. But my best thing was walking around and checking real estate with my father. I loved it. I wish he were around today. He died at 94. He loved what he did, and he looked great, and he was great, but he just loved what he did. It kept him young and happy. He was a happy guy.
All right. What you said about pressure, my father used to say that a man's greatness is measured not by his talent or his wealth, but by what it takes to discourage him. So it made me think of that when you, good point. But what would be one word of advice you would have for an upcoming businessman, for a future businessman?
Knowledge. But if it's one word's very hard for that, but the word is knowledge. But you get knowledge through experience. One of the things people talk about is luck. And I do believe that people are lucky, and some people are luckier than others. I do believe that. But there's also an expression, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I can tell you 10 instances where I didn't quit when it was 1990, the world was coming down, the debt markets were everybody, all of my friends and enemies were going bankrupt. I never did. And the times were actually just terrible. And even today, you look at times and you see what happens, and you have to learn. But the word luck is very interesting. But if I didn't work really hard, I probably would not, almost definitely would not be here today. And unless you had me up as a man who at one point was successful, but let's see what a loser looks like. So you have to work hard, because it is true, you can develop luck through hard work.
What was your favorite moment on The Apprentice?
Well, I always loved Omarosa. Do we love Omarosa? By the way, we're shooting, starting tomorrow, we start shooting The Celebrity Apprentice, sort of the same thing, offshoot, and Omarosa is a candidate. We brought back Omarosa. We have a great cast. We have 14 people, all the best. So we've taken the best from every season, and we'll be shooting. But I think my best day on Apprentice was really, because again, as I said before, Jerry, I knew nothing about ratings. But when I found out that I was the #1 show on television, I said, can you believe? I said, think of my father. Think what my father had passed away before that. I said, I'm a movie star. I'm a television star. This was not supposed to be in my agenda. So that was probably the coolest moment, is when I found out how well we were doing.
This is my question. Did you really punch your second grade teacher because you felt like they didn't know much about music? Is that what, I read that somewhere.
Highly competitive student. I have no comment, Jerry.
I will tell you, before we came out, he went in the restroom to make sure he looked okay. He took one look in the mirror and he said, can't improve it. So he walked out. That's true. But we have one more question. Students want to know, what courses of study do you recommend that most likely to help them find a job in today's economy?
I think that's the best question. I have so many young people coming to my office where they're friends of, daughters and sons and all, and they want to know, could you sit down with my daughter or my son and give them a little advice? I would always say, study something that can help you after you get out of college. I mean, I see so many students studying things. I don't want to say anything about which, because I could give you 10 different names. Things that will never, ever let them lead a life where they can support a family, where they can support their children and their education and health care and all of those things. And I want to tell them, don't do it, but at the same time, if they love it, I always say you have to do what you love. But I would always say, if you want to be a teacher, you study certain courses where you want to teach those particular courses. If you want to be a business person, you should absolutely go to business school, and whether it's marketing or accounting or any of them. If you want to be a scientist, if that's your thing, you have to study that. So always study something, but when you study it, don't do it just because it's of interest. Do it because, remember, you'll be graduating in 2 years or 4 years or whatever it may be, and you want to use that as a base for a great life for you, your family, and you want to be proud of yourself, and your family wants to be proud of you. So don't waste that college time. To my way of thinking, Jerry, college time is so precious, such an important time, probably in a way the most important time of your lives. Don't waste that period of time on studying things that just won't help you. If you have to do it, you have to do it. But I would recommend you study something that's going to help you in the future. You are a great, great group of people, and I'm honored to have been here, and I hope to come back someday soon, Jerry.
It's not too late to get back in the presidential race, is it? I don't know. Thank you. Donald, thank you so much for being with us today. And you guys are dismissed.